gosh, you sound so good. Our invocation this morning is by songwriter Leonard Cohen, Democracy, written in 1992. It's coming through a hole in the air for those nights in Tiananmen Square. It's coming from the feel that this ain't exactly real, or it's real, but it's in the desert far away. Democracy is coming to the USA. Sail on, O mighty ship of state, to the shores of need, past the reefs of greed, through the squalls of hate. Sail on, sail on. It's coming to America first, the cradle of the best and of the worst. It's here they got the rage and the machinery for change, and it's here they got the spiritual thirst. It's here the family's broken, and it's here the lonely say that the heart has got to open in a fundamental way. Democracy is coming to the USA. It's coming from the women and the men. Oh, baby, we'll be making love again. We'll be going down so deep that the river's going to weep and the mountain's going to shout, amen. It's coming like the tidal flood beneath the lunar sway, imperial, mysterious, in amorous array. Democracy is coming to the USA. Sail on, O mighty ship of state. I'm sentimental, if you know what I mean. I love the country, but I can't stand the scene. I'm neither left nor right. I'm just staying home tonight, getting lost in that hopeless little screen. But I'm stubborn as those garbage bags, as time cannot decay. I'm junk, but I'm still holding up this wild little bouquet. Join me. Democracy is coming to the USA. Thank you.
And now I'd like to invite Charlie Schul up to come and light our chalice. Charlie turns 10 today. And if you would join me in the words, we kindle this flame, symbol of our faith, for the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of love, which calls us to work for justice.
Good morning. Welcome to Valley Unitarian Universalist Congregation. My name is Barbara, and I'm honored to be the worship associate for today's service. We're so glad you're here to worship with us. Wherever you are on your life's journey, we bid you welcome to this circle of love and community, to this sacred space. Join us in keeping our hearts in a holy place and reveling in this single beautiful day. And join us in remembering that as Unitarian Universalists, we affirm the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. Our settled minister, the Reverend Dr. Andy Burnett, is out of the pulpit and will return next Sunday. In his place, we welcome Luke Douglas. And Luke is the executive director of the Humanist Society of Greater Phoenix. He also serves on the board of the Secular Coalition of Arizona. He holds a JD degree with a concentration in constitutional law and a Bachelor of Arts in Communications. In his spare time, you'll catch him reading history, science, or philosophy, writing for fun, or playing pub trivia. He will share his journey out of fundamentalist homeschooling, young earth creationism, and patriarchal theology to become a humanist celebrant and interfaith bridge builder. His insights lift the veil on a 6-year career as a conservative political operative for the religious right and the evolution that led him to question everything. Welcome, Luke, and thank you so much for being with us today. We are always delighted to share our space with guests, and while it is entirely voluntary, for those of you who are visiting us today, we invite you to stand as you are able so that we can greet you now and after the service. And we invite everyone to join us for coffee hour immediately following the service. So grab a beverage and a snack and look for the Welcome Circle sign where you can learn more about our congregation and Unitarian Universalism as a whole. If you need a listening ear after the service, our pastoral care associate is Randy. There he is back there. And Randy will be available for a private chat with you at the very front of this sanctuary on your right, immediately following the service. Also on your right is a quiet room that can be used during the service for either kids or adults. It's soundproofed and has a speaker, so you won't miss anything. And as you might have guessed, our theme for this month is democracy, and I opened with the song lyrics by Leonard Cohen, in which he explores the complexity of democracy and the irony of America's relationship to it. And even though he wrote those lyrics in 1992, it seems to me they are very relevant for today. The roots of Unitarian Universalism are deeply connected to the principles of democracy. We are committed to the democratic process, both in our congregations and society at large, and even to theological concepts such as God and afterlife. For me, my Unitarian faith makes it impossible for me to disassociate myself with how I am in the world. My faith is so deeply connected to how I walk the path. For example, I can't hold a belief in democratic principles and then vote for someone who views a world in which there is a hierarchy of human worth and value, or someone who views the environment as potential profit only, with no commitment to its well-being. I've become increasingly concerned about the fate of democracy in the USA, but then I see also hope for its potential as it is reflected in other countries. And that hope makes me remember the notion of impermanence. Things come into being and then they dissolve. And it's our responsibility to show up and care deeply and remember that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. So thank you for showing up today and helping bend that arc. And now, back to Barbara.
Please rise as you are able again and join me in Love Will Guide Us.
Will lead the way.
Thurgood Marshall says, "We cannot play ostrich. Democracy just cannot flourish amid fear. Liberty cannot bloom amid hate. Justice cannot take root amid rage." We will take up today's offering, and thank you in advance for your generosity.
I'd like to invite the children forward for their offering and for our time for all ages, please. Thank you. Thank you. Do you want to put that in there? Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I want to tell the grown-ups who are with these children today that because of fall break, we're going to have a game day, and we'll all be in room 1 and 2 together. So when you come over to check them back out, that's where you'll find them today. So, because we have a visitor today, and he's going to be talking about his beliefs as a humanist, I thought we would see if you had any idea what he's going to talk about. So we made a little quiz. Let's see if we can find it. Jackson. No quiz. Is it not in there? Okay. Well, then we're just going to go from my memory. So, a humanist. Let's think about what a humanist means. And I've got 2 choices for you. Do you think that a humanist is a person who believes that we should all take care of each other, all humans, or that they think that it's important to take care of yourself first? What do you think? The first one, humanists, they worry about the humans. They think about the humans, right? Do you think, what about the animals? I think that's included too. I think taking care of everything. I think he'll clear that up when we're gone, but I think so. Do you think that a humanist thinks that God made the earth and makes all the decisions, or that humans are here by science and that they should make decisions that are best for them and the planet? Which? Yes, both answers? What do you think? Acer. Acer, what are you saying? Okay. Actually, typically a humanist doesn't believe in a God creating anything. So they believe that the humans are the ones who have to make the decisions, and we formed out of evolution, and there's not a God involved. Yeah. You do? I think that Luke is going to tell everybody that they don't think that. They think that there wasn't a God that made the earth. There isn't a God. Yeah. Do you think that the humanists would think that climate change is pretend or real? What do you think? Real? I think they would too. Yeah. Okay. I think we did pretty well without our slides. Yeah. All right. If you will come back here, please. We will ask everyone to form our bridge and sing the children out.
This little light of mine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. And now as we let the sanctuary settle down a little bit, so that we can also settle down and enter into our time of centering, meditation, quietness, being present here, now, in this moment. We're going to sing meditation on breathing, and Noel will join in with the descant after a little bit. You are welcome to take any part of this you want. You can stay on the sort of ground, continue under thing. You can join her, whatever suits you for coming into a centered, present place. When I breathe in, I breathe in. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in me. When I breathe out,
And join me in our centering time. O intangible Spirit of joy and compassion, in whom we live and move and have our being, we acknowledge your presence as we sit in silence together. We imagine our feet touching the earth, grass, sand, sea, rocks. We breathe in, we breathe out. We let our thoughts come and then go, knowing that each breath, as each day, is a journey, and the journey itself is home. The journey itself is the goal. The journey itself is the life. Let us settle in silence. Such a gift, that silence together. Blessed be.
Good morning. There's a story in the life of the great freethinker Bertrand Russell that some of us who may be familiar with his contributions to philosophy haven't heard. You see, his grandfather, Jack Russell, was actually a popular prime minister of the British Empire under Queen Victoria. And because of that family name, Bertrand grew up with the privilege of knowing that if he just wanted it, he could have a career that would lead to high office in politics. He was recruited as a young adult by the local Liberal Party Association. He spoke to the meeting, they loved him, and he went into a closed strategy session with the political elites of his community to talk about his future that would lead inevitably to being prime minister. At first, they had just one question. We've heard rumors, they said, and I won't attempt the accent, that you're an agnostic. What are the odds of that getting out if you were to be our party's nominee? Pretty good, he said. Well, would you be open to going to church occasionally to keep up appearances that you're still a good traditional Anglican, just like everyone in your family? No, not really. And that was the end of his political career. And it freed up nearly a century-long lifespan to redefine thought as we know it, to write the best-selling book of the 20th century on the topic of philosophy, and to be a principal founder of many movements that we associate intricately with the progressivism that we all know. And that story, for reasons that I'll circle back to, always resonated with me. I was homeschooled, deep in the heart of Christian fundamentalism. Young earth creationism, patriarchal theology, doomsday prepping, you name it, I lived it. It was my whole identity, and my blossoming curiosity soaked it all up, memorizing books of the New Testament, all in King James, and learning to preach as a teenager. And while I was seriously considering a career in the ministry, I found my true love at age 15, politics. In 2008, I went down to California to volunteer for the Proposition 8 campaign, which amended the state constitution to define marriage as being between one man and one woman. It passed. When I was 17, I made my rounds in conservative circles and started getting invited to speak as a rising star of the Tea Party movement that was sweeping the nation's politics at the time. They loved me, perhaps only insofar as they loved a token young person who gave them hope for their movement's future. At 18, I moved to Northern Virginia for my first full-time job at a consulting firm where I raised money for major conservative and libertarian organizations and campaigns. At 19, I finished my bachelor's degree and went to a conservative Christian law school on a full-ride scholarship. At 20, I was working in D.C. for a fundamentalist legal defense and lobbying organization and loving every minute of it. But ironically, it was for that job that I was on the steps of the Supreme Court of the United States the morning that Proposition 8 was shot down. The marriage inequality initiative that I had helped to pass in my first foray into politics was unconstitutional. And I don't know how many people in the world can say they were in Sacramento in 2008 and in D.C. in 2013 to see it from both ends. But I know how I felt watching both. And as much as I love the thrill of being in politics and being in proximity to these things happening, I know how differently I felt from one to the other. And it couldn't have been more different. From pure ecstatic triumph through the lens that saw the world as black and white at 15, to a sick, sinking, guilty feeling at 20, mingled with secret relief that the cause that I worked for and had to support publicly had lost. See, there's a funny thing about legal education. You have to learn to argue for both sides of a case, and the better you are at understanding your opponent's case, the better you'll be at representing yours. And so from that side of the chessboard, I played this game of constitutional law. I worked in First Amendment cases, became a legal intern for an organization dedicated to advancing the religious right in the courtroom. And I became president of their affiliated student organization. It was through that connection that when Ken Ham of Answers in Genesis came to speak at the law school, I emceed for him. And when later he debated Bill Nye the Science Guy on the scientific legitimacy of creationism, I was excited. I ordered pizza, organized a debate watch party, and we all gathered to watch Ken Ham take creationism to a new level of legitimacy and recognition in media and science and popular culture. So I had to watch Ken Ham, my childhood icon, get taken apart before my very eyes for bringing faith to an evidence fight. You have to understand, I hadn't really thought about creationism for years. This was the foundational starting point of everything else that I was doing. And all of my time had gone to how to be the best advocate for the practical applications of that foundation. But when Ken Ham was so embarrassingly destroyed on television, I realized this was too important to ignore, and I had to learn about evolution, about astronomy, about deep geological time, about ancient history, about everything that would go into it, so that when it was my turn to debate the Bill Nyes of the world, I would be a better representative of young Earth creationism than Ken Ham was. So inevitably, of course, here we are. I delved into the history of thought, from Socrates to Sagan. I turned to philosophy to wrestle with those foundational questions. My seminary background weighing strongly into some of the similar thought processes of wrestling with questions from a different perspective. I lost interest in the perspective that my seminary education was taking and redirected that energy into a new way of asking questions with an open mind. And of course, ultimately, to the science that I had never been taught to care about. It came to a head in the summer of 2016. Organized hatred and bigotry were so deafening that I could no longer live with myself knowing that I was a part of it by day and secretly questioning by night. I wanted all of this to be a passing phase until it clicked for me again. I wanted nothing so desperately as to find a reason, any reason, to stay, or just to find an honest core to what had been there from which I could amputate all of the toxic baggage. I was in a Chick-fil-A in Central Texas, where I was working for a Republican state representative campaign at that time. My then fiance was in Asia doing missions work all summer long, so I barely, with the time difference, had occasion to talk with her about our journeys in real time. I remember vividly in the Chick-fil-A how instrumental-only Christian music was playing so subtly in this icon of evangelical culture that a non-believer might not recognize the songs and so wouldn't have to be offended by being there. But a believer would hear it and would know all the words. And so the song played and drudged up every memory I had of fundamentalist sermons, of pseudoscientific talking points I had since learned were not valid, and of the thousands of King James Bible verses that I'd committed to memory. I snapped. I've dropped my book, I think it was Benedict Spinoza's book on deism at the time, put down my sandwich, went into the men's room, sat on the toilet, and bawled my eyes out for an hour and a half. I was, as I finally admitted to myself, a humanist, a freethinker, and a progressive, in soon-to-be more ways than I was ready to understand at that time. Everything my old worldview had made clear to me was now nuanced, was complicated, and it required being wrestled with. And everything that I had thought about my purpose in the universe was gone. So I went home and called my fiancée while she was still asleep in Korea. I told her what had happened, and I begged her not to leave me, as her faith and people who shared her faith insisted that she would have to. She didn't, and in many ways our journeys, albeit in parallel directions, and sometimes tension over the timing, have gone in the same general place. And if anything, going through that process together has made our marriage even stronger. Falling back on her support when I had to become a full-time volunteer in progressive campaigns was irreplaceable. And now I've worked my way back up to being a full-time activist, but on the right side of history, lending my intimate knowledge of the other side to making our message more effective. But I knew that I had to rebuild my network from scratch if I wanted to keep doing what I had always loved. So I started searching for a dream job, a place where I could harness the power that I had seen on the religious right, where churches would bring people around communities of support, but then unleash them for what I had believed was right. And having changed what I believed was right, I wanted to know if there was another type of community that could advocate just as effectively for my new values, especially in the decline and the void left behind by the collapse of fundamentalist religion. In the 1910s, Bertrand Russell faced a world where no humanist who was honest about it could serve in high office. And even a couple years ago, when I started this journey and came to grips with my own non-belief, it looked like nothing had changed. But I resolved that my honor was not for sale, whatever the price may be. But here we are, in deep red, Bible-thumping Arizona, proving that's no longer true because people like us have refused to be silent for the last century since those times. And across the spectrum of non-belief, all the way to our interfaith allies and everyone from all walks of life, humanists are here to try and make that world a reality. And we carry together with the Unitarian Universalists, to whom we owe much of our own history as a humanist movement, the banner of skepticism that goes back all the way to Socrates and now promises to carry our pale blue dot to a brighter future than any reactionary impulse could ever dream. Thank you all.
Thank you, Luke. Thank you very much. Right now we will rise as you are able and join our voices in For All That Is Our Life. Remain standing, please.
And let's all say our extinguishing the chalice words together. Though we extinguish the chalice, our connection to each other and this community remains. May its light guide us this week as we walk the path of justice, speak words of love, and fill our world with compassion until we meet again. And our closing words are from 1 Corinthians 16. Keep alert, stand firm in your faith, be courageous, be strong. Let all that you do be done in love. Go in peace.